I only have the shit I boot up regularly downloaded now, and GOG was still like,
really?
Yeah, and
I wonder if it's something to do with the GOG.
And crossplay doesn't even work. So I'm not going to buy it for Steam. Because I got it as a gift from my buddy Charlie on GOG. And I'm like, well, even if I went and bought it on Steam to play it with him.
Dude, that sucks. I'm having such a good time with it.
Yeah.
I keep setting it down and coming back, but I've got like...
And now we're at the problem. Here's when I'm going to get it. When everyone I know that has played the fuck out of this game has like not touched it in a couple years. That's when I'll get it. When it's finally fucking optimized and they've all like forgot a lot of the shit. Because if I do it now, Kate is going to be bored out of her goddamn skull while we go for the first like whatever hours of the game. Because my girlfriend, she has 4 saves that are all like in the end game at this point. Like, she is going to be bored. She's going to be like, yeah, come on. There's an illithid. Yes, I know. Let's go. Come on. Like, she's not going to want to play through it slow, like at least one time that I would probably need to. Like, I totally get it.
No, I totally hear. I totally get that. When I'm playing with my buddies that I'm further than, I just like sit back and I'm like, you make every decision and I'll follow. And that's just how I've been playing the game.
Yeah. It also is really funny because, like, again, the people that I have played with that are like, well, I think it's just your computer is a potato. I look at their game. I'm like, oh, my computer. Oh,
yeah, I know that.
Start calling. We want to start playing the Who's Got a Hot Potato game because, brother, your game does not have textures. Like, the shadows aren't rendering. What the fuck do you mean?
Yeah, so mine, I definitely only have a bad render when I'm first launching the game and it's in the like the menu. And it takes a while for my plants and foliage to not be a bunch of triangles. But as soon as by the time I'm loading the game, it's gorgeous. And the memory leak that used to exist with quick saves and quick loads, because I am a save scummer. I tried. I've gotten better, but I'm not perfect. Nobody's perfect. Yeah, it's gotten a little less chuggy.
Oh, I'm sure it's gotten better, but like I went back through. I was like, how is this working compared to other Larian games? And like DOS 2 was evidently like very similar.
Yeah.
Do we have any other tech related pre stuff before I like close the back, go get Rocket? We talk pre show like note stuff.
No, I think we are ready to rock.
Okay. I'm going to clean stuff up, go grab Rocket. Be right back. Oh.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Small Talk Podcast. I'm TJ, and the guy walking away right now is Cannon, a horrible, horrible podcast host. He doesn't have his toys with him, which means he is a stupid, stupid little baby. But I do, and I'm ready to rock. So while it's just you and just me, let's sit back, chill out, and relax, and listen to the intro song.
Oh.
It's looking like he's situated.
Yep. Doing like golf commentary over my pre-gaming.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. I didn't quite go all the way, but I wanted to channel a little bit of Three Dog I've been thinking about him lately, you know.
Uh-huh.
Just I hesitated. I shouldn't have, but I wanted to be like, and the scrap cannon's back, Wasteland. It's time for the Small Talk Podcast.
There are, I will say, there are Fallout minis that we could
I'd
do.
love to do some. I'd really like to. I like Fallout a lot.
Yeah.
I haven't gotten to jump into Starfield yet, which I want to, but I'm probably going to wait for a patch or two. Interesting thing, from what I've been reading, while the universe can be kind of empty, one of the most rewarding things is if you take a background that gives you like parents, then they'll just like write you letters, basically. Well, not write you letters, but they'll just like contact you from time to time, and they'll like just show up at different planets, and it just makes it feel a little more populated. And it's like, oh, mom and dad are so proud of me. And after all, isn't that all we're really trying to achieve?
Mm-hmm. There we go. This is like comedy bad lighting, or not comedy bad, but this is like me lighting part of my screen by like
picking a nice sunset image.
No, pulling up a lorem ipsum generator to put on my screen.
Cool. No, actually,
well, I'm teasing you. Look over and be like, yes, this is. No, I can just be like, oh, it's gobbledygook. Like,
no, I actually get it. I fixed up some of my lighting by changing the laptop's like brightness settings, and I threw a little light over here. Increasing production quality, while looking absolutely disgustingly pasty. Which is unfair because I'm actually really tan this year. I don't know why I look so completely reflectively.
If it makes you feel any better, when I got into work today, the first thing my boss said to me was, "Oh, Jesus, you're pale." So, like,
well, you saw me at my birthday. I'm reasonably tan.
Yeah,
I sit outside a lot. I touch grass.
I did think unfair. It was funny. I didn't say anything because I didn't want to be that guy. But it was very funny listening to a bunch of people on the West Side sitting in the shade on a 73 degree day, just like, oh my God, this heat, it needs to stop. I'm like, okay,
Yep.
Yeah. Kate's the same way. But it was really funny.
Yeah.
But I was like, does anyone really want to hear? Actually, no one wants to get actually about that.
No, I mean, when I was in Texas for a while, like, I loved that heat. I didn't love the humidity. I liked the heat. When I was in Arizona, adored the climate. Even when I was visiting my folks, they're like, you should really get out of the sun soon. It's not safe. And I was like, shut up.
Yeah.
It's the middle of August. I'm gonna lay in this pool for 35 minutes, goddammit. And I'm not gonna turn into a lobster. I'm just gonna be happy about it.
Mm-hmm.
It was magnificent. I wish every day in Washington was 85 and sunny, 90 and sunny. It's just not humid.
Yeah.
And not in this loft where playing D&D up here, it gets like 15 degrees hotter.
Ugh.
It's gross.
I would say come over to the West Side, or East Side, but you're also going to be dealing with like other seasons. It's not perpetually hot. But the summers are.
Lots of yupping and talking about the weather. That's really great podcasting.
A great podcast. A time-honored small talk tradition. We're simply honoring our name.
Oh, well, actually, I like it now.
Yeah.
What if we just began starting every episode by talking about the weather? As part of the small talk podcast.
That'd be an interesting bit.
That's actually kind of adorable.
And the funny part would be trying to figure out how to loop a miniature into it. Like, it'd be really
yeah.
Like, my favorite so Blank Check, they open a very standard thing to do on a movie podcast. You open the podcast with a quote from the movie, right?
Oh, okay.
But because they are specifically Griffin Newman is the sweatiest man on earth, he has to figure out how he can interject the word podcast into the quote. So like,
Okay.
I'm trying to think like Brad Pitt's speech to Kevin Spacey about being like a flash in the pan. He's like, "You're nothing. You're a t-shirt. You're a podcast." Like, very, very sweaty, very funny. It would be interesting to see how we could relate the weather. It's a good bit to keep in the pocket. I admit we're going to be here a while if I have to do that tonight.
Yeah, I don't have it, and we're already 13 minutes into our recording.
Oh, we're recording this.
Oh yeah, we've been recording since since the Baldur's Gate talk.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great.
Oh, I introed the podcast. You just weren't here for it.
Oh, poggers. Am I on a podcast? Is that what we're doing right
You're
now?
on a podcast.
I'm on a podcast. We pod a cast. We
bought a zoo. I bought a Kevin James, which was
that was a bad idea.
It was a different zoo movie than I thought.
Yeah.
But, it's pretty cool.
Oh goodness.
Yeah.
So they already know why they're here. Why are we here? What do we do?
Well, I was gonna tie this whole thing in.
Uh-huh.
Are you ready? Are you ready for this logic stretch?
Yes. And
remember, we're professionals now. Get up on that microphone.
Yes, I'm right here.
Yeah, thank you. That's exactly where we need to be. We need to be right back there.
Yep.
Perfect. So Kevin James thought I was buying Zookeeper. Turns out I bought Pixels, another movie that weaponizes your nostalgia of the 80s to. We did Rocket Racoon, guys.
Yes. Yeah, we did
Rocket Racoon.
A guy. He's a whittle, as they say in the biz, he's a whittle guy.
Because the mixtape volume.
Yes.
1, 2, and 3. Did you get what I was?
Well, insofar as they had like cassette tapes in the 80s. Those were still in production. From my limited understanding of the time period, as I wasn't there.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I was playing around, Pixels, doing similar kind of thing. But unlike Pixels, Guardians 1 is a really fun movie. Guardians 2 is a pretty fun movie.
I like Guardians a lot. I think Kurt Russell as Ego is actually one of the very fun villain performances.
Technical difficulties, everybody. We'll be right back.
MCU. Okay. We're both back.
Let's see.
Yep. I can see you moving and talking now.
Great. Excellent. Okay.
Cool.
I can also see you moving and talking.
Moving and talking.
Yeah. We're good. What is that? Oh, there's a raise hand icon. That's what that is. We're learning how to podcast.
Yes.
So, Kurt Russell, is that what you said?
Yeah, Kurt Russell. So a pod attacks the cast. Yeah, the Kurt Russell performance in that movie I think is really good. And Rocket is in that movie just as he is in the palm of my hand.
Wowie zowie.
And there is a miniature version of him available for purchase from Atomic Mass Games' Marvel Crisis Protocol.
Whoa. That was me being really excited.
Yeah, the crowd goes mild, right?
Whoa!
But that game, low key, if you guys are looking for a fun pop culture tabletop game that's kind of skirmish scale with a fun little deck building mechanic and some overall very impressive multi-part miniature kits, Atomic Mass Games makes a pretty good superhero game. I really do, from what I've played of it, enjoy Marvel Crisis Protocol. That being said, this particular miniature, he's a whittle guy, right, TJ?
He's a whittle fella.
And the thing about whittle guys is any Greenskins player from Warhammer Fantasy Battle or Tyranids player from Warhammer 40,000 can tell you, Whittle guys are really annoying to paint.
Dude, forget about annoying to paint. I can handle his size just fine, Kappa. But what I really struggled with was assembling the guy. Well, I think we'll get there, but
we'll get there.
Before we get too into it, let's talk a little bit more about these guardians in this Rocket Racoon.
Yeah, this here Guardian of the Galaxy.
Because, polite. So when that movie came out, the first Guardians movie came out, I was 21. Avengers had already come out when I was like late high school, maybe like 18 or so. So it was like early adulthood.
Mm-hmm.
Guardians for you would have been like elementary school, middle school, I want to say.
Guardians is what year again?
2012. No, it wouldn't have been 2012. It would have been a little later than that. Like 2013, 14, somewhere in that range.
So that's like 8th grade, 9th grade for me. Yeah. So end of middle school, beginning of high school.
Yeah. So I'll start by saying that the really weird thing that I noticed, at least with me, my friends, is we were the early 90s kids, meaning born in the early 90s or late 80s, depending on which of my peers you were talking to. And that meant that we all had this like weird nostalgia for the 80s that we weren't a part of. I think the same way that quite a few people in your generation end up having a nostalgia for the 90s that they weren't a part of. It's really normal. Everybody ends up kind of emulating or imagining what the college kids older than them were into and thinks that was like cool and retro. Pretty normal. So a lot of the Guardians music, whether it was 80s or even kind of 70s, just from some other influences I had, I felt like, whoa, this is a movie that totally gets me. It's so funky and bodacious. And I probably used those words. It's groovy. It's a jam, man. But what was your experience with it being quite a bit younger when it came out?
So my experience with Guardians was seeing it in the theater. I loved watching a lot of that early pre-Infinity Saga, I guess they would call it now, Marvel stuff. It was really fun. It introduced me to a lot of cool comics. I wasn't into comics before I read, or rather watched, a lot of Marvel stuff. And the Guardians were just this really fun. I knew Chris Pratt. I just called him Chris Pratt because I do that joke all the time. So his name in my head is just Chris Pratt. What is that?
I was silently Jim Carrey laughing, but it's going to be edited so that they won't see me do it. So that's good. Just for you.
Okay, good. Yeah, good. Because
you've seen that before, where he does the like yeah kind of thing.
Yes.
Yeah, I was trying to do one of those, but with no sound.
Don't take this personally. You don't have the same malleability of your facial structure that Mr. Jim Carrey has. So it kind of looks like you were just gnashing your teeth at me, which I was like, that's a very interesting.
It was also outside of context. I think you would have gotten it if I had thrown in a little nyak sound or something.
Yeah. I might have understood it was a comedy laugh for comedy purposes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But to loop back around to my point, Guardians was the first big like post Avengers thing I watched and really kind of blew up the scope of the MCU to like a fun level where it didn't feel, kind of as, I want to say, bloated as it does now, but doing like a fun, lighthearted, like Marvel Cosmic romp was like just a really good move. It's a good film from James Gunn. I admit I'm kind of a fake. as much as I like movies, I have not gone back and watched his earlier stuff. But I enjoyed Guardians. I enjoyed the Suicide Squad when that came out.
The
Suicide, not the Suicide Squad.
Okay.
That had Idris Elba. I was always going to be on board for more Margot Robbie, Harley Quinn, and Idris Elba playing Totally Not Deadshot, or whoever Will Smith played in the first one. I don't remember.
Slade.
Was he Deathstroke? I don't even remember, man.
I believe he was supposed to be, but yeah, I thought he was supposed to be Slade Wilson.
Yeah, maybe, but he didn't even have like the eye thing. Right?
I have no idea. Look, I didn't watch either of them. Part of being 8 years older is that I hit my Marvel fatigue, or well, I mean that's DC, but I hit my superhero fatigue 8 years sooner than you did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
yeah.
And I don't even know if I'd say I'm fatigued because
when
I sat down to paint Rocket, I wasn't like, oh God, here we are with another like superhero thing I'm doing. I sat down. He was kind of a butt to put together. But I was like, I enjoy this character. I was really excited to try to do like a raccoon's face because they have that fur pattern that's like very light fur, very dark fur, very light fur. And I've never painted like essentially like black and white that close together before and needed to keep them separate. So I was really excited to try that.
Sure.
And yeah, I sat down and I really enjoyed it. And I liked that 3 was Rocket's movie.
Did you see the third one? I never did.
I did.
Okay.
It's his movie. It's kind of frustrating that a lot of it is filling his backstory in while he's in a coma. But which is always kind of frustrating. But, the other Guardians are a lot of fun. Having different multiverse nebula is really weird. It's really weird. Like, because they're like, no, she's like still here, but you have to be like, no, that's a completely different character because the Gamora we liked. Sorry, I said Nebula, I meant Gamora. The old Gamora dies in Infinity War. So like
8-year-old spoiler.
Yeah, 8-year-olds. It's not 8 years old. How old is Infinity War?
Infinity War 2. It's got to be at least 5.
No, the first one. It might be 2016. You might be right.
Yeah, I think it's up there at this point.
It's never mind. Oh gosh.
But, welcome to the club, bud.
Yeah, no. But no, 3 was fun. I enjoyed sitting down painting a small little raccoon man, even if he was a little kind of a butt to put together.
Obnoxious to put together. Yeah.
I don't think I had a bad as time as you did.
I hated assembling him.
Yeah. That's fair.
I don't know why they gave me multiple snouts because it made me confused. There were several parts that there were 2 of the exact same part. So I was just like, I don't see what the difference is. Am I making a wrong decision? What the hell's going on here? Having the snout be separate from the rest of the head is the most confusing option I've ever seen in a sculpt. It's a decision, all right. Yeah, I don't like models that I have to put together with tweezers.
Fair.
I was really annoyed the whole time. My roommate just heard me screaming about a little toy raccoon for an hour or 2 hours or whatever. It's like 5 pieces. It shouldn't have taken any time whatsoever, but everything kept falling apart because the contact points were so small.
Now, do you use primarily plastic glue or super glue for plastic models?
I prefer to use plastic glue where I can, and this guy really didn't make that possible. Plastic glue was fine for Groot, not for Rocket at all.
Okay.
Because those contact points are too small, and when they're that fine, you need something that just adheres quicker. I think I did eventually. I think I tried plastic glue and then eventually got fed up and moved to super glue and glued my hands together a million times and had a horrible experience. Again, and I have nothing positive to say about my experience. I mean, I think I already told you that. I hated building this guy. There were parts of painting him that went well for me, but I even hated the paints that I chose, which we'll dig into. But there is a big technical problem with them where, even though listeners already should know this, we had set up front, hey, we really got ahead of ourselves, didn't understand how long it was going to take to edit, to this, that, whatever, by which I mean we pre-recorded by quite a bit. So there's a big gap between the last one and this one.
Yes.
And the model is still sticky. Yeah.
Elaborate on that.
Yeah. So, as you know, and I'll show on the screen here, I did all of my painting as a light and color study, but really trying to focus on a light study. So I was doing my models basically in black and white, and then using really angled perspective in order to do a pink light and a bluish green light. The bluish green from underneath, the pink from above, but even then, both of them kind of angled. So, look at my hands on the screen, guys. It's that. Jazz hands. And so I thought it would be really cool to use the Vallejo fluorescence, which I had such a good time on Link with because I only used it for the eye. And I thought that had worked really, really, really well. And I suppose for Link, in that one very particular instance, it did. But my God, there is no coverage to this thing. They are so slimy. I knew they were going to be glossy, but it's like too glossy. And literally, they're sticky. This guy has been done. I painted him. I don't recall how long ago at this point. It's still sticky to the touch, and they just catch cat hair. It's gnarly. I'm very upset with this. I should probably go through and do some sort of matte varnish or something over the top of it to try to reduce this stickiness. But I've just had such negative feelings about this model ever since that I haven't gone through and done that.
No, I get where you're coming from on that. There's a lot of models that, especially when I started painting, I would go through them and I wouldn't like how they came out. And I could probably fix them, like fixing models is not terribly hard. Like, even if you just want to strip the thing and go again, you can.
Sure.
But I think there is kind of, for me at least, sometimes a psychological block of like, I just don't want to go back to that. Like, well, I'm just pissed at this model.
Here's the thing. I hate how my Groot came out. We weren't doing Groot for the episode, but if I'm painting one, I'm going to paint both.
Mm-hmm.
I hated how the Groot came out. I love how the Rocket looks.
Mm-hmm.
I think the effect I got is really cool, and I really accomplished what I set out to do with this idea of doing a light study, and especially the base on this thing looks freaking super rad. Like, I guess, if I have a positive thing to say about these minis, I think the bases that they came with are really cool. So I accomplished everything I set out to accomplish. It's just, the process could have been better. I think I would have had more fun if, instead of doing this particular paint, I had scrapped it, stripped it, and tried again with just normal paints.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I didn't understand that whatever the hell is in that medium is like gel. It's so weird. I don't know if it is a gel paint or what, but I did not have a good time with it.
Yeah, I've only ever used quote unquote neon paints through an airbrush, and very thinly. Just like craft store, like neon purple or like whatever.
Maybe that's the move. Maybe I would get some better results out of an airbrush. I should probably try that, because I'm not throwing away my paints right now, but I don't see where I'm going to use these again.
Right. Yeah, it's a tricky deal. It from what I remember, this was a long time ago, mind you. I was using them to paint plasma coils, and shooting them through an airbrush, and they dried pretty well. But I don't know. I've actually, fun fact, I've never used Vallejo ever.
That is fun.
No shade at Vallejo, but clearly this is a sampling of products from them that you're not super enthused
and
with.
Vallejo is my favorite paint brand. So that's part of why I'm so miffed that these stink so bad. Because I love my other Vallejo paints. There are many, many paints that I already owned in different ranges that I just repurchased in Vallejo because the coverage is better and they've got a better feel on the brush tip.
Mm-hmm.
But boy, howdy, I hated this. It's not even that the color's bad. It's that, like, I mean, I was doing like like I couldn't even begin to guess how many coats. I mean, literally like a dozen coats on these guys, and they still look white and black in many places, which I was going for that a little bit, but not to this degree. Like, that's the thing is, at this point, I put in so much of that paint just trying to get coverage that I've lost any detail or ability to go back and add normal paints for my highlights to punch up those details. That they're just gone. They're covered in a thick layer of goo.
Goo. How sticky? How tacky are they?
Covered in cat hair.
Like the whole thing.
I mean, like, I can't like show it because webcams stink. I'll try, but like, he's clean now because I've been sitting here picking at him. But Groot, he's like, I mean, I don't know. Again, I don't think you can really.
I can see
hairs hanging off
glossiness.
here, hairs there, hair there. Like, just picking up cat hairs. It's glossy, and I don't mind glossy when it serves a purpose. Yeah, glossy should be like hard, not tacky. That marble angel thing that I did, that's really, really glossy, and it's hard. It's not tacky. That's a perfect example of what that effect should be. This is, again, it's like, I don't know how else to describe it. It feels like there's residue from a gel, or almost like I need to go through. If you've ever worked with like UV resins, after you've already cured them, if you don't go back and alcohol wash them, then they stay really tacky to the touch. It kind of feels like that for my acrylic paint.
That is a strange sensation.
I hate it. I mean, I just sat there and did that, and my hands are sticky now that we're talking. Not like they're gonna, peel apart or anything. Not like they'd make sound, but just enough that I want to wash my hands.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So on mine, I just used a lot of like my regular P3 lineup and some contrast paints. I did not do anything I do think, though, especially like when we see these on the socials and everything, like TJ's models, folks, like really do look cool. Like, it's a cool idea to do as a lighting thing like that. I really like what your model does.
I think it really achieves exactly what I set out to do. That was something we want to talk about, was what was our inspiration, what were our plans, our supplies, our techniques. We kind of changed up the order. I said what my supplies were, and they sucked. And I said what my technique was, or at least my kind of, where I was saying I was just basically glazing this shit on there over and over and over again. What I didn't really dig into was more of that idea where it was the light study, but I really wanted to get an idea of what does rim lighting look like. So rim lighting is basically your edge highlighting in the world of painting it in 2D, like 2D painting and drawing. Whenever you see those really cool imposing like Batman on a background on a comic book, and there's like this little edge of blue that's kind of hanging out on the on that outermost layer, but still within the bold black lines, that's your rim lighting. And that's kind of the effect I was going for. And I had this idea in my head of like, oh, I'm going to build this diorama, and it's going to be this dirty, gritty, like they're in an alleyway fighting off some guys. And so there's going to be like this pink exit sign, or like ladies only or something. I don't know. And then this other thing that's like a broken old like CRT TV. And that'd be fun and cool, and garbage cans in the background. And I had this whole big fun idea. And then they just are so gooey to the touch that I don't want to touch them.
As with most things, goo ruins it.
Goo ruins it.
Goo ruins it. I've worked with gooey resin. No fun. Goo ruins it. That if you take anything away from our show today, folks, goo ruins it. Just
goo ruins it.
I'm sorry, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle fans. That's why you're never gonna see a TMNT. Or, well, no, we could do TMNT because that's ooze.
Yeah, I would do different. Ooze. Ooze is cool. Goo is bad. Cool. Ivan Ooze? Ivan motherfucking Ooze? Bro.
Bringing up Ivan Ooze. Yeah.
Hell yeah, I'm bringing up Ivan Ooze.
All right. Okay.
How how dare you be dismissive of the ooze?
You got to remember, man, I'm not as much of like, I'm not a TMNT head as we
Ivan
talk.
Ooze is not TMNT, it's Power Rangers. How dare you, sir? How dare you, sir?
I'm a fake fan of those things I never claimed to be a fan of.
Ivan Ooze is the antagonist of the first Power Rangers film.
The first film.
The first film.
Yeah, the first film. The Power Rangers Go to Hollywood.
It's Power Rangers the movie, not Power Rangers Go to Hollywood. You feckless idiot. Weird Power Rangers thing. I found out somewhat recently, two of my very good buddies, they're brothers, their dad apparently dated the gal who played Rita Repulsa. Who was like,
wow.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
That's an interesting anecdote.
Yeah, I was like, that's kind of cool. That's, you know. And
that's
apparently they just did a Power Rangers 35th year anniversary where they got like all the Rangers and like major villains together from all of the series ever and did like a big like their cinematic universe, you know, thing.
Of course, yeah.
And apparently she was on that and they gave her like a good role there. But yeah, so they had like all the guys that I grew up with being like, whoa, Tommy's the coolest. And they're there. Now, I think some of them might have gone to jail or been murdered by their parents, but the ones that weren't were there.
Hey, that's all you can ask for. Being a Ranger is dangerous work.
Yeah. Yeah, it's more dangerous than the WWE. Dave Bautista.
Guardians of the Galaxy. I can do word association. No joke. I would want to paint a Drax figure at some point in the future because Drax is my favorite part of this whole deal.
Sure.
And it's mostly because like I love, except for Stuber, but
who?
Exactly. I've loved Dave Bautista as an actor since he's started doing that more than wrestling.
Oh, Stuber.
Yeah,
I just remembered. I was
at
first I was going through Stuber as like a Guardians character, and I was like, what in the goddamn what? Who's Stuber in the MCU? And then I remembered, oh, Dave Bautista is an Uber.
Well, he's like a CIA agent or something, and like I think it's Camille Nanjiani is like an Uber driver named Stu. It's really dumb.
Yeah. Okay,
there's I don't know why, but there's an action set piece that it happens in a Dick's Sporting Goods.
Dude,
and
you got to get because you got to pay for your movie.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's the real reason. Yeah,
you got to pay for your movie. You're not going to pay for it out of your profits, you dipshit.
Yeah, no, we gotta get what does Dick of Dick's Sporting Goods fame think of the? He's I don't know, man. Every time I look at that, I'm like, was this money laundering? This feels like money laundering.
Yeah, I'd really love to get your opinion on all of those things on these beautiful Blue Yeti microphones brought to you by Logitech.
Yeah, brought to you by Canon's checking account. Yeah, you can donate to it directly at no Patreon link because we don't have one of those.
No. We'll have one someday, but not until it's like worth having one.
Yeah,
I would feel super guilty asking.
Can you imagine asking for someone to give us money over this? Like,
yeah. Like, hey, last episode we couldn't get the webcams working.
Give us some money.
Give us webcam money. For just $30 a day, you too can help support a webcam in need.
Yeah. Oh boy. That was, but this one does have some like sometimes my whole screen just goes green. I don't know why. I kind of hope it happens at some point in the podcast history. I hulk out, my webcam hulks out. It's great. Like
that. Yeah. When I was younger. So again, Marvel movies were coming out when I was like late high school.
Mm-hmm.
They're coming out really when I first started driving, and well, not all of them, but enough of them did. Like we already had like Iron Man 1 or whatever, but I was particularly obsessed with the Hulk back then. And in my car, I had saved up and put a pretty gnarly sound system of it in high school. Like all of my Toys R Us paychecks went into buying a good subwoofer.
Mm-hmm.
And the deck that I bought had green illumination as like one of its settings. So I had that, and it was just like murdered out way too loud. And so me and my buddies, when we're driving around, we'd call it doing a Hulk smash, when we would just like crank up the volume, and then we'd just be annoying and too loud.
And they'd get hit with like, I don't know, I'm trying to think of like, probably not, but it's funny, supermassive black hole just like spilling out of a car.
Probably. Yeah, I've seen Muse. They're great.
Yeah, good. My connection with Muse is largely the one scene from Twilight, and maybe that makes me a cretin, but
I haven't really been into anything they've done in a while, but there was a period in time where I really liked them a lot. Yeah, like a lot. I've seen them at least once, maybe twice.
Mm-hmm.
But I used to go to shows all the time. In a pre-COVID world, all of my expendable income was going to shows.
Well, and now you're spending it on the much more fulfilling hobby of small plastic miniatures. So,
to be fair, I also would be spending it on going to shows if my shoulder didn't hurt so goddamn bad.
Is it the physical? Because I know you like going.
Oh, I'm a mosh guy. I'm a mosh guy.
Yeah.
But dude, even my mom, she's in her 50s. Until she moved to Arizona, she would go with me at least once, sometimes 2 or 3 times in a year, to various punk shows in Seattle in her 50s and throw down in the mosh pit for 3 hours.
That's crazy. Wait, what? Are these punk shows with like multiple bands playing?
Yeah.
Okay. Because I was like 3-hour punk show. But then, that makes sense. You might have never been to a punk show in Seattle. So.
Yeah, I mean, any concert you go to should be at least 2 hours. And I would say, in my experience, ones like that where you're talking, not like a big like arena show. I usually like club shows, right?
Mm-hmm.
Even theaters are usually too big for me. I'll go to a theater, but only for like the right band. For the most part, I don't want there to be a chair in the house. I want everybody to be stuck together moving. And oftentimes with those, your openers might have 15 minutes to, 30-ish. The second to last opener, they might have 45. My favorite band of all time, I mean, shit, they go up there and they play for like 2 hours. They just rip the fucking ceiling off. It's rad. It's so good. Because it's not like jam band music either. It's like high intensity, get up, move, go. Do that for like 14 minutes. Not one song, 14 minutes, like multiple songs over the course of 14 minutes. And then like, all right, now we're going to take a little breather, slower song. Everybody recover. All right, now it's time for violence. Go.
Just
I love it.
Multiple instances of choosing violence. Yeah, I mean, that's a punk show, though. Like, from as I understand it, it's like very high tempo, very like aggressive, very in your face.
It's the most aggressive group of people who don't know each other and love each other that you'll ever be around. Like, it's extremely violent, but as soon as something happens, the community is immediately there on top of each other. Not every time. There are sometimes that some guys like thinks he's like the big pit boss or whatever, but he usually gets jacked. Like, he'll stomp around and be an asshole, and then about 30 minutes in, a few of us have had enough drinks that we just fuck his day up. And then he's gone.
Mm-hmm.
And it's great. And then we all high-five each other, and that's it.
Hey, nothing a couple drinks and another.
Look, it's not punching each other either. It's just when I take a bounce, I know where I'm going to try to direct that kinetic force. And it's there. But no, it's also very legitimately, I think, a huge part of why I have so many shoulder issues. I've dislocated my left shoulder in 2 or 3 pits at this point, and had people snap it back in. That was one of the most painful experiences of my life. There was a big like summer festival that I went to, and I want to say it was like Dropkick Murphys or something, and there was just some big old like Marine guy. He was the one that dropped into me and snapped it out, and he was just like, I'm a corpsman. So I guess he was Navy, not Marines. He's like, I'm a corpsman. Do you want me to? And I was just like, And he snapped the thing back in, and I went back like 15 minutes later in what can only be described as the euphoria of being 18.
Yeah,
Because
man.
I would die if I tried that today. But even so, the thing that finally totally took this out was at Streetlight Manifesto, my all-time favorite band. Or no, it wasn't at Streetlight. It was at a Real Big Fish show. I warned everybody. I like ska. It was at a Real Big Fish show. Same thing. I snapped it out of place again. Had somebody reset it once again, and they didn't do a good job that time.
They
And
weren't
then-
a Corman. They
No.
no.
No, they felt bad, and I was drunk enough to just say, just hold it really, really stiff, and I twisted myself, and that was dumb. Don't do that. Don't do that. Seriously, guys, don't do that. And this is the folly of being a dumb punk kid. So then I went back a couple days later, and while it was still hurting, I went and worked out, and I was doing deadlifts, and then I was exhausted after a long day of working out. And instead of putting the weight up, like the bar up on something to pull off the weights, I just absentmindedly, like, if this is the bar and you've got weights and weights, I stuck my hand right here and tried to slide the weights off. I don't know why. I had been working out for many, many hours, and that was the last time I was able to lift heavy weights, and that was before we met.
Yeah, you've told me about that injury. I didn't know that was exactly how it happened.
Yep.
But yeah.
We could stop talking about Rocket and just go into punk show injuries, and I'm down.
Well, it's going to be a pretty one-sided show if we do that. So
for this guy,
this guy, what?
Just when I've broken him, it was at shows.
Oh, I see. Yes.
Yeah.
I've never broken a bone. I'm lame. Like that's the other thing that people need to realize. I may be like the young guy on the show, but dude, I am like infinitely more less. Yeah, that's a word.
Yeah.
Infinitely more less worldly and lame. I would definitely say that. I have never broken anything at a punk concert, so
that's basically the only place I've broken things.
I mean, if you're gonna break something at a concert, that's one of the ones that kind of makes sense. From what I know. I mean, look, to kind of give a difference in our age brackets, where we grew up, all that stuff. Everything I know about like punk and the punk scene is from listening to like history podcasts about like the Dead Kennedys and like the fucking Misfits and shit like that. Like I don't know anything about like 90s punk. I don't know. I have never been to any of these concerts. Like it's totally like 3,000 foot view.
Oh, that's so funny. No, dude, even before I went to Western, I went to Evergreen and I was studying ethnomusicology, which is a very long way of saying unemployed music guy. It's not even learn to play music really well. It's just know a lot about music.
It's like an art history major.
Yeah, it's art history of music, basically. It's anthropology of music is literally what it is. Mm-hmm. And I did like a 3-month or a 6-month like field study and like massive report on the rise of punk music I started mine in like the 70s-ish, and then I went all the way up to the rise of grunge in Seattle. And that's how I like actually made a couple of cool connections at the time and recorded my albums with my band at the time.
Oh, technical difficulties, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, so all that just cut for me.
Yeah, I could hear you having issues, but it looked like it was still working for me.
Okay.
And you know what? If it all disappeared, then nobody gets to hear the secret hidden history of TJ's wasted original run at college when he was 18. We'll save that debauchery for a later time.
Yes. Yeah. We'll see if it shows up on the Two Timers Club. Just because I guarantee you, if we do this long enough, there are stories that are going to get repeated.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Is that what the Two Timers Club is?
Yes.
Okay.
That is what, and there's tiers, of course. So we'll see what our first couple, and if anyone decides to start listening to us, I'm sure they'll let us know. But to kind of switch gears a little bit.
I'm going to argue it was relevant. Guardians of the Galaxy, music's important. Go.
That is true. And I did listen to a lot of the volume 1 and 2 mixtapes.
Oh, did you?
While I was painting the model. And I'm probably sure I listened to Fresh Fruit from Rotting Vegetable. I listened to that album like 2 times a month practically at some point while I was painting Rocket. But so when I sat down to paint this guy, to kind of mirror what you were saying about having like an image from like a comic book or a diorama in your head, the kind of thing I wanted to zero in on when I was starting to paint Rocket, as you were saying earlier, TJ, was kind of taking like a frame, like a page from a comic book and like imagining that. And for me, I kind of just did a much less dramatic thing than you did. I really like how big of a swing the kind of grayscale black and white with like the lighting is. But I did a very comic booky, poppy, like if there was something called Rocket Racoon number 12, right? This is what the cover art would be.
That's
a Rocket holding a big gun, doing his thing. Because I think this character has become massively more popular in the wake of these films.
Absolutely, yeah. Guardians was a from nowhere, no one knew what it was sort of IP into a household name. I mean, I would consider myself at the time a pretty big like comic book guy. I was even on an old comic book podcast back in those days. Right. Nobody will ever find it, for the record. It's gone. But
I made sure of that.
But yeah, I sure as hell didn't know. I'd like heard of these characters. I had never read anything with them. I was more familiar with Squirrel Girl than I was with Rocket Racoon.
An aside, that is a crime that for those of you that have read The Unbeatable Squirrel Girl, that is a crime that we never got that in the MCU. Because Unbeatable Squirrel Girl frickin' rules.
If they ever do it, it'll be like a Disney Plus thing, I'm guessing.
That would be so lame.
I've never really sat down with any of the Disney Plus Marvel stuff. Is it like
Loki is fun? WandaVision I like.
I heard that one was really interesting.
Those are like the first 2 though. If that kind of tells you anything, where they go.
I think we just disconnected. Yeah. This has never happened to me before.
So yeah, my kind of main inspiration going into this was Rocket Racoon number 12. It's another adventure with Rocket and Groot, and sometime after Guardians 3, because
I think we have to edit that out. I don't know what the time frame is, but less than a year, that's not acceptable.
Yes. Which I'm not sorry for and won't apologize.
I still haven't seen it. You're a jerk.
It's on Disney Plus. You can go watch it if you want.
Yeah, I know. And maybe I was going to after this fucking episode, but now there's no need. You just told me that, they
marketed it as. What do you want from me?
Not the. There's a difference.
Okay, all right.
Especially, look, Guardians of the Galaxy is Star Wars better than Star Wars. So does that mean we're going to get some Guardians prequels? What's up?
Oh. With de-aged Chris Pratt?
Yeah.
That would be a time. I would love to see them use the de-aging technology from The Irishman on fucking Chris Pratt.
On a guy who's already young enough.
Yeah, he's young enough. He's young
enough. He's a hunk. But yeah, we're gonna turn him into Kid Anakin.
Yes. Yep. We're gonna make him walk around on his knees. You know, he's gonna have to get de-age makeup, de-age CGI. It's gonna be great.
It's gonna star the kid from Young Sheldon, who I'm guessing is a man by now. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Is Sheldon still a child? I don't know. I never watched Big Bang Theory.
I don't. I always think that kind of stuff's really funny. It's like, all right, Big Bang Theory's over. What are we gonna do? We gotta make some more money. What are we gonna do to make some money? I know. Here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna make Young Sheldon. All right. Well, what's the shelf life on that gonna be? Well, it'll go on forever. I don't think the kid's gonna stay a kid forever. Hey. I don't know.
It would be funny if they just recast the kid and never addressed it.
I think that would be better.
Yeah, that would be funny.
Like one of my favorite Netflix
it's
shows.
Like a Doctor Who scenario where he keeps he's in a time loop and keeps like reincarnating as different child actors.
Yeah, Doctor Who, they hacked the formula. They figured it out. But frickin' like one of the shows that I like a lot is Last Kingdom. It's just like dumb fantasy, like medieval stuff. It's not even fantasy, but it's like medieval historical fiction, fantastical, I'll say, but not like magic getting thrown around kind of fantasy. I like it a lot. They used the same actor from season 1 all the way to the end. And theoretically, he aged like, if you're going by the books, like 60 years in that time, 40 to 60 years in that time. And if you're going by the character that went from being a young girl in the first season, like acted by a little 8-year-old girl or something, to a full-grown woman and his love interest in seasons 3 and 4, she got a lot older, but he didn't.
Interesting.
I like the show. That is something that bums me out, but also I like the actor who plays the character. So I'm like, I'll deal with it, but it's really hard not to notice the whole time that it's like, hey, hold on a minute.
Yeah,
everyone else all the kids got old, but all the old people stayed the same age. What's the deal with that, huh?
Space is warped and time is bendable.
Uhtred's been 32 for 10 years, 20 years, 40 years.
He's 30 going on 50.
Yeah, like if you figure out what the chronology of the show is, I think by like they did a movie to finish out the series. I think by the time the movie, it wasn't. I don't even think it was originally going to get picked up to get its normal resolution. And then COVID hit and they got a pop of support from people getting into it. So they gave it the final season. And then they were like, they made like 3 more books. So we're going to go ahead and throw one movie out those 3 books.
I'm sure that went great.
I didn't see the movie. The series is so dramatically different from the books that I like both, but they're so absurdly different that it can be challenging to really compare them. Like, for instance, the guy who plays Uhtred in the show is extremely likable Jon Snow guy. And in the books, he's an unbearable piece of shit for 8 books. And in the last 5, he's pretty all right.
Huh. That's a bit of a change.
It's a little different.
Yeah. That's something about like old fantasy stuff, man. They could just write them. They could just keep going. Like, have you ever looked at like Dragon Riders of Pern? It's like 20 something books in that fucking series.
Crazy.
Like, it's insanity. Like, you know, it's like when you realize there's like more Dune, right? Like, if you're not a Dune head, you're like, oh, Dune. Yeah, I've heard about that. And then you like read Dune and you're like, oh, there's a lot more Dune. Why haven't I heard about it?
There's a lot more Dune. I've read through Children of Dune.
That seems to be the generally accepted, like,
yeah, that's the second one. I think I could get one more, and then I think after a certain point, Herbert's like one of his kids or something takes over writing it.
I think so.
But yeah, so I've only read Dune, Children of Dune. I want to get the third one, but it's never. I don't know. It just never happened for me. And like the author that does the Last Kingdom, the books are referred to as the Saxon stories. The TV series, Netflix series, is Last Kingdom. He also did a 3-book series on like a historical, like realistic retelling of the King Arthur story.
Mm-hmm.
And I really like it because I like that kind of dark, gritty chainmail era stuff. So this is, it's like 400s. It's cool. It's dark. It's kind of messed up. My running joke to all of my buddies has been that it's written by and about Sir will not be featured in this film. The entire thing is told through the perspective of this guy, Derval, who is he's one of King Arthur's, obviously he's one of the knights. I'm on the second book. He hasn't actually said Knights of the Round Table yet, but I can tell it's around the corner. And it's like, yeah, they're like best buddies. They're hanging around. They're having a good time. Oh, yes, my lord. I like you a lot. All this kind of stuff. But yeah, of course, that guy's not in any King Arthur myth I've ever heard of before. So that's been my running bit. Also, Lancelot is a son of a bitch, and I like that.
I'm not intimately familiar with the mythos, but that's interesting. I'll maybe have to give those a check.
Yeah,
give those a check out.
I'll send you some links. I actually, while I've read all 13 of the Saxon stories, and I'm only 1.5 books in on the these ones. I think they're called the Warrior Chronicles, and these are, I think, his earlier works as well. These are better. I love the Last Kingdom books enough to read all 13 of them. This is way better. If for no other reason than your main character is extremely likable. I like him. I want to make him my little buddy.
Right. Nothing, no other inclinations. No, smooching, TJ.
Oh, smooching. No, that's a sin.
Oh, gotcha. Well, that's what he would tell you.
Well, depending on when I get to him and he gets to me, you see, it's about pagans for most of it, and then the influx of Christianity, but it's him telling us the story from the time that he's already an old man and is now a Christian monk retelling the story.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I think he's also the narrator in Guardians of the Galaxy parts 1, 2, and 3.
Films famous for their narration.
Yep.
But yeah, it's interesting looking at these rockets because they're very, I like how they're posed.
Yes, it's a really good, I really like the set piece happening with both Rocket and Groot. I like Groot's shoving his vine arm, whatever, through the ground. It's popping up. Rocket's on top of that, blasting shots at somebody. That's cool. I always criticize bases that are bland and boring and don't tell a story. I criticize a lot of models that don't tell a story. There is a story being told here, written right into the sculpts. Yes. I know that these two are in the middle of a battle. They're not my Mark, as much as I enjoyed doing the Space Marine, our Mark 6 Space Marines, they were just holding a gun. Yeah. They could have been anywhere. They could have been standing guard in front of a palace room or whatever the hell. These guys are in the middle of fighting for their lives and probably having a good time while they're doing it. And I like that a lot.
And I think the fact that Rocket is standing on Groot's arm really sells that these guys are buddies. They're a team that transcends even the Guardians organization. And that type of deal is really cool to me, especially with the kind of how integral poses are to comic books as a medium. I think something that these models and their brethren in the Atomic Mass Games line are very good at striking a pose. They're never static. They're very rarely static. Now, some of the are some of the poses goofy? Absolutely. But you can never accuse them of not being dynamic. Now, where does that hurt you sometimes? Ease of construction, as we've talked about. If you are someone who's like, I've got sausage fingers, dude, this might just straight up not like, bro, I am straight up not having a good time. Like it, I didn't take 2 hours on it, but I totally understand when people are like, as you said, like, I couldn't get this fucking thing together. Something I did want to clear up though about the multiple things. This is actually a thing that they do in their model kits, because I've assembled other AMG kits. Certain like small fiddly elements that can easily get lost often have duplicates.
Okay. If there was like a little manual that told me something along those lines, I would have been on board. I don't even know if there were instructions for putting this guy together.
There were,
but
there?
Okay.
They're not as good as they're not as good as GW instruction booklets, but for sure.
Yeah, which again, it's funny because I am being really critical and negative about this guy, and once again, I still really like the sculpt and I really like what I did with him, but I had a bad time doing it. Like, that's the weird thing. There have been a lot of things that I've painted before where I had a really good time doing something that looked like shit. And this is the first time that I've had something that looks good that I hated. I hated it the whole time. Right. It came out exactly how I had envisioned it. Or 90% is how I had envisioned it. Again, I thought my coverage would be a little bit better with that magenta especially. But I just didn't have any fun.
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to be done so I could paint the next thing. And maybe part of that is because the next thing I painted is for the next episode and something that I was championing and super all about.
Yeah. I'm excited to talk about that. But looping back to Rocket, he's a really it's an interesting way to bring up something we've talked about in the past. And that I remember in the past, you talked about feeling certain techniques are like a crutch, like dry brushing or using contrast paints. There are certain things in the painting community that people will never, I don't think anyone would ever like cheer or like jeer at you for doing, because at the end of the day, it's like a personal art project. So who cares?
Mm-hmm.
But like you might beat yourself up about like, oh, well, I'm doing this thing that's like a beginner technique or like, but sometimes like there's a reason that people paint models certain ways, and it's because those ways are comfortable and give them satisfaction in accomplishing them. I think what this kind of became a case study for was like, I really enjoyed painting Rocket. I painted him very simply. I blocked in all his base colors. I highlighted him. I extreme highlighted him. And then I washed him. Bing, bang, boom. Like, and then I did black rim around the base, very standard.
Yeah.
But I had a good time getting a good, fun little model with a lot of character done in not the quickest I could do it, but for doing things pretty traditionally, I'd say probably 4 hours of work time front to back.
Mm-hmm.
And that brings joy and pride in my work. I think coming at every project wanting to improve and grow is important. But I don't think that means every time it has to be new tools, new techniques, new everything. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, trying to say new tools, new techniques every time, it's untenable. And there's a certain point where you start to get away from the pleasure of the project. And that probably, I think that probably is part of what happened to me here. And maybe I'm even, as we're talking more and more, the more I'm realizing that I really did enjoy what I did with Rocket. It was Groot who I had a bad time with. Building Rocket totally sucked. I didn't like that. Painting him wasn't bad. Groot was easy to assemble. Painting Groot with the technique I was trying to do, that light study, that was a pain in the ass. And again, because that coverage was so bad, I tried so hard to make it look right, and it just never quite did. To the degree that I'm really happy with my Rocket, I'm still not happy with my Groot.
Do you think doing this pair and the combination of Groot's paint job not turning out and Rocket being a pain to assemble might have been something that just kind of soured you on this whole little project you were undertaking?
I think that's a fair way to look at it, yeah. Because I didn't get to fully enjoy either element, but I do wonder if I had separated the two, completely isolated, instead of being like, well, if I'm going to paint one, I'm going to paint both. I might have had a better time. Or even, I think I might have assembled them and painted them all in the same day. I could be wrong. If not, it was the next day. But I think I took like an hour break to let glue settle and then got to painting.
Yeah, and if assembly on Rocket took like 2 hours, I
was already in a bad mood.
Yeah. That's just... I get, I get why that would happen. It's like, well, it's for the podcast. It's da-da-da. But still, at the end of the day, it really sucks when you, in life, you're going to have to do shit you don't want to do. That's just a fact.
Mm-hmm.
But in the hobby, this is, at the end of the day, even though we're putting out a podcast about this, because we love doing it.
Yeah.
And I think a lesson I would want listeners to take away from kind of, I'd say this is probably our most negative episode since the Gold Dragon.
Yeah.
And it's hilariously the opposite problem of the Gold Dragon, which didn't have any assembly options. This is itty bitty fiddly assembly options, which I think is ironic.
Yeah. And sorry, I didn't mean to talk over you there, Cannon. No, I think you're onto something there for sure, where I guess you can forget that half of the hobby, well, not even half, because I'd say half of the hobby might be the playing part for a lot of people, but half of painting your miniature is first you have to assemble the dang thing. And a bad assembly project can really sour you to a paint job. And I think that really is probably what happened. Because even as I'm sitting here staring at these guys, I so clearly remember the thing I enjoyed doing the most was the base. The base, I just painted it. I didn't have to worry about fiddly assembly bits. I just painted the dang thing, and it worked great. And I will say that while I really struggled and disliked how thin the coverage was on the paints that I used, those neon whatevers, when I thinned the crap out of them and used them like a glaze and did that to get this really cool effect on the ground, it's so good. It's so comic book. It so perfectly achieves what I set out to do. So even as I'm sitting here shitting on that tool, there is a really good way to use it. It's just not the way I wanted to use it. Mm-hmm. Or at least it doesn't do the other thing I wanted it to do. So this might be a case where I've poo-pooed a bit too much based on my own being a grump, and it almost be like complaining that your minivan is too slow. I think I might have chosen the wrong tools for the wrong job. I might have chosen the wrong technique for the wrong model. I might have done... A lot of this might be on me. It doesn't mean that my criticisms aren't valid as far as Rocket's a pain in the ass to assemble.
I agree with that.
Neon paint doesn't layer very well. Those are true. You can't fight me on them. They're true. But I probably made things harder on myself than I needed to.
And that's okay to happen sometimes. Like, I'm not like trying to call you out and be
no. It's something that I think a lot of us will encounter in our hobby and career, is that sometimes the idea you have in your head or the tools you have available to you don't match up.
Mm-hmm.
Again, Rocket came out the way I wanted him to, mostly. I like him. I would put this Rocket on display. I wouldn't put this Groot on display. And I don't know, maybe a year in retrospect, I would come back and paint this guy again. I ended the last episode when I edited it together, showing off my improvement as a painter. And I think one of the things that maybe also kind of stung when I hit Rocket here is Rocket does show an improvement in technique over where I was a year ago. And Groot probably does too. But I don't know that either of them shows an improvement in technique from Link. And so I might have also gotten discouraged, going, I just made so much progress model to model to model. What the hell is this thing?
Mm-hmm. And again, this gets back to something I've talked about a lot. Like, what is the purpose of the piece, right? Like, I think very clearly for both of us, this was a display piece. You know, like I play Marvel Crisis Protocol every once in a while, but like I don't play it religiously. So I was mainly going, okay, yeah, Rocket's a display piece. Like, he's a cool little guy. I was not painting him with the game in mind. And I think you were in a similar place.
Yeah, I'll never play the game, probably.
Yeah. We were painting it because it's a fun model, and we wanted to paint it for display purposes. And so when you're doing it like that, it can, I think, sometimes lead to a more self-critical and very worried about what someone would like say about a model. If you in your own brain are going, I'm painting this to display standard as opposed to tabletop standard, which are things we kind of differentiate in the community. And I think it's important to realize that like that's different things for you and for me and for everybody. Like, that means something different to everybody. And being okay with the learning experience. Like, I kind of felt this way about Rocket, and I think I've done this a couple more times than you have. I think I have a tendency to play it too safe when you'll take big swings. You know, that's just a difference in painting comfortability and style. Like, you're coming into this on a much shorter like run up time than I was. I'd been painting slowly for quite a bit, like before I even knew you.
Right.
And then when we started getting hanging out more after college, and you got some more Hammer minis, and you were like, hey, I think I'm going to get back into painting. You really jumped into this head first. And I think it can be kind of daunting, especially when you have a friend that gets you in that is not also brand new. This kind of spirit and need to like catch up, so to speak.
Sure.
Which I think it's awesome for like pushing yourself.
Sure.
But obviously, as we talked about earlier with the mosh pit story, you don't want to push yourself too far, because then things can get kind of wonky, and really when the hobby stops being enjoyable, that's really when you kind of might need to just kind of reevaluate and like be like, what do I get out of this? What is fun about this to me?
Yeah, I think once again, if I were to do this again, I'd actually probably just not even retouch Rocket. I'd just go back to Groot, which is outside of the scope of what this conversation's supposed to be anyways. Mm-hmm. This was supposed to just be Rocket. I've already plagued the waters. I would be curious to see if I bought this whole kit again and did it in standard colors rather than trying these neons, how it would have worked out. If it would have come out better or worse, I honestly have no idea. And I also wonder, even if I did like a third version where I painted everything exactly how it's supposed to be, just like in a dark environment, but actually put browns on the wood and, you know, gray on the gun and all these things that I didn't do. I wonder how much different it would look if I tried doing all that and then still used this neon, but used it as a glaze like I did on the base, how that would have turned out.
Right. I think to cover another aspect of the model, that this kit, because it is notable, Rocket does not come by himself. He comes with Groot.
Yes.
They're a $25-$30 package deal, right?
Oh, I think it was more than that.
Was it?
Yeah, I thought they were kind of bizarrely expensive.
They might have been
40.
Right.
Yeah, I thought it was like 40, 50, 40, somewhere in that range.
I don't think they were 50.
I hope.
I usually remember when things get to GW levels of like, okay, I can kind of be like, eh. But these come as a package deal, unless you want to scrounge around on eBay for just a loose sprue, which you can do. But getting these as a package is a fun little duology project. And I think that if some point in the future, just to kind of put that hobby thing to bed, I think that would be a great idea to go back and do that at some point. Because it's like when I got my first models I ever painted were Plague Marines for Death Guard in 40K. And they were sprayed with car primer and were horrific and glossy and black and terrible. A while later, I just bought a box of Plague Marines. I didn't need more Plague Marines, but I wanted to prove to myself that I'd identified the mistakes that I thought I had made on those initial models, which I did not strip because I keep them as a reminder.
Mm.
And I wanted to do those really beautifully disgusting models justice. And I did that, and it was great. And I had a squad of Plague Marines that didn't look like total butt. But I think giving yourself the time to really feel out, like, do I want to go back and do this? Like, do I really want to go back and do this? Is important. And it lets you reflect on what you would change and do differently. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a great segue into what we would change and do differently about this model.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think I've already hit what I have here, which is at dead minimum, I would have tested these paints more than I did before investing into using them as my only two colors. I think I primed black. I had a white, my pinkish color, and my turquoise-ish color, and those were the only things on my palette. I had 3 paints on my palette.
There's a beauty to that simplicity.
And, oh yeah, I think I did actually eventually mix a little bit of a brown to try to get something feeling a little more saturated. Because that's really what this all comes down to, is the points that I wanted to be the most highlighted ended up being the most desaturated. And that's what rubs me the wrong way with Groot so much. It looks fine on Rocket. It doesn't look so good on Groot. Any which way, yeah, I probably should have done some test swatches before fully committing to this. The other thing I would have done different, probably, looking back on this thing, is I probably would have built the rest of the diorama I had in mind. I really think that my idea was pretty stinking cool. I'd probably like how these guys look a lot better if they had the context that I wanted to supply them with. And shit, maybe it's just I need to photograph them on a black background instead of a white background. Maybe that'll make the difference too. Because that's the environment they're supposed to be in, is a dark, dingy place with 2 object source lights. Mm-hmm. One in each of the jazz hands. So, yeah, that's probably what I do different. Maybe also abandon any thought of plastic glue. Get some tweezers. Get a good 12 hours night's rest beforehand, so there's no shake to your hands when assembling the snout.
The dreaded snout.
Hire somebody to put it together. I would have done that.
That certainly would jack up the price of the model.
I would gladly have paid $20 not to build him.
You know what? For how long did you say it took to build him?
Oh, like 2 hours.
Yeah, fair.
Literally wasn't worth it.
Fair.
Building the little dudes is almost always my least favorite part. I like doing bases. I like painting. There are parts of assembly that I like, but really only when I can get kooky with it and I start green stuff in and this, that, whatever. You know, when I think back to like the Space Marine, putting that little knife on the gun, bayonet, knife gun.
Yes, knife gun. I love you, knife gun.
Oh, what's that from?
Kitchen gun. The class. Yeah. I love you, kitchen gun. Goodbye, Dad. Like he's just like shooting up this woman's kitchen and like cleaning things.
Huh. All right. Anyways, yeah, I had something else in my head, but I can't pull what it was. Anyways, I forgot what I was saying. But
you were talking
maybe negative for too much this episode, anyways. So
no, you were talking about adding greebles and bits when you're assembling models.
The thing that I always hate is just putting two pieces of plastic together and waiting for it to cure, and then I get to start doing the shit I want to do. I just want to be doing stuff.
Right.
That's, I think, the whole reason I was looking forward to the Gold Dragon, and then I was really disappointed. It's because I was going, man, if this thing is awesome and I don't have to build it, whoa, this is going to be the greatest experience of my life. And that's why the Gold Dragon ended up letting me down, is I went, oh, it's pre-assembled and it kind of, the quality kind of stinks. With this guy, the quality is really good. I have no complaints about the quality. The plastic they use, and this might have even kind of aided in some of the difficulty, the plastic they use is a bit softer and a little bit silkier than G-Dub plastic. So I felt like it was a little more slippery to the touch on top of being really small and fiddly. So yeah, what would I do different? I'd hire somebody to build it. That's really what it comes down to. I would have just done about anything not to build it.
Hey man, we don't even have editors. What's all this talk of hiring people to assemble our models?
That's because I could hire somebody. I could give somebody $20 to put this raccoon together. Ain't nobody going to edit these episodes for $20.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. It's degrees. We're talking about levels, Jerry. Levels.
So how about you? What would you change?
What would I change? I would have pushed the black lining on this guy even further.
Sure.
Just gone absolutely crazy with it. Because I actually, a long time ago, painted a Captain America where I did go crazy on the black lining. Now, I was a lot worse at painting back then, so he looks kind of janky. Old Steve, Mr. Stark, I don't feel so good. But he's really, it does kind of have the baseline of that comic book style where every part of the character is very clearly defined by the black lining, which is a really cool technique. If I highly recommend trying it out if you haven't sometime, because it's a lot of fun. If you're the kind of person that really likes doing stuff with like oil washes and like panel lining and that kind of stuff, it can be really fun. So I would have done more of that, and I would have pushed my highlights even further.
Sure. Because
maximum contrast is always what comic books, especially like, superhero comic books, are to me. Rocket's not from an Alan Moore series. He's not from Watchmen. Right. I'm not going to paint him like a down and gritty superhero. He's a space raccoon with a giant fucking gun.
Yeah, well, I'll say I like that you just did these big bold blocks of color.
Mhm.
Like that really does work for exactly what you said. Rocket number 12. It felt like Rocket number 12 to me when I looked at it. It looked like the thing that you did very well could have been your box art on the miniature. It was bold, bright, no over the top bullshit, but still like did the job.
Yeah.
And again, I think especially the way I just describe it is like these bold, bold blocks of color. I don't know how else to say it than bold blocks of color. Sorry, I'm looking down at my phone to look at pictures of your Rocket and of your Captain America because I have that saved too.
You
So
do.
I'm just kind of tabbing between them right now.
How do you think I painted America's ass? How do you
How
think
did you do it? Probably moist.
The paint was moist. I will confirm that fact. Yeah. It's a fun one. The little wings on his like head are a little tricky.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
But yeah, it was a fun experience. And I do recommend doing that for
Yeah. Here's something else. I do wonder, do you think, now I know you actually play this Marvel game, so you might very well use this Rocket miniature at some
someday.
point.
Yeah.
You might.
I'm not using.
But for the sake of argument, would you have enjoyed painting this Rocket more if the model was bigger?
Oh, see, that's always a tough question. I think that is dictated by what the model is going for. And this is at the end of the day a gaming piece. To kind of call back to when we talked about the Gold Dragon, I think this is infinitely higher model quality than that.
Not even comparable.
Yeah. So it's a very high caliber gaming piece. It's not a, insanely detailed miniature because it's in 28 and that limits what you can do. But I like how he looks on the board because I don't like painting a bunch of whittle guys, but I do like painting a whittle guy because I don't paint a lot of them. So that was fun and a unique challenge for me, who is a, knuckle dragging Space Marine player. I paint a lot of power armor, one solid color. So really having to be like, oh, that's fur. I really gotta, and that's different than the jumpsuit, and having to differentiate these textures, is tricky, especially on something that small. And it's fun to do as a one-off. If I had to paint an army of rockets, yeah, probably less fun. It's the reason I've never gotten into Gene Stealer Colts. They look really cool, but holy hell, that much skin, undersuit, different color of gun, carapace armor, like they're cool models, but for the amount that you have to paint with how detail packed they are, it's just ugh.
I mean, it's why I have so much unpainted chaos. It's just after a certain point to go, look, to make this look
trim.
Yeah, to make this look
trim.
It's insane. I can't bring myself to do it. I like chaos a lot. I just can't bring myself to say, you know what I want to do? I want to spend 4 hours on each Marine.
Yeah. Oh.
Because any less than that, at least at my level and just like with the shakiness of my hands, any less than that, I get spillover everywhere. I have to spend that much time to make it accurate on something with that much trim. Can
I give you a life hack real quick?
Sure.
So if you're going to continue painting chaos, as I have decided to as well, do a metallic, use a dark color for the under part. So like whatever color you want to do like a really dark purple contrast over that metallic. And then take like a kind of dirty yellow and run that over the trim, and you'll get like a dirty gold real quick.
Yeah, it's
And
just not quite what I want to do.
which is
I
fair.
have these ideas in my head.
Yeah, the ideas thing is always frustrating when you're like, I have this idea, I know what I want to do, but executing it across a whole army, which is something, maybe at some point in the future we'll talk about, because I have a couple armies. I don't think have like a big force fully painted.
Fully assembled and painted? No. Unassembled, unpainted, about 5-ish thousand points of Space Marines, of Chaos Space Marines, and of Tyranids.
So the talking through the trials and tribulations of picking out a big artistic project like that is maybe something we can cover in the future.
Yeah,
because it's a different animal. It's a different animal than what we've been doing.
And honestly, I should just put together the damn salamanders because that's the easiest one.
They green.
And I figured out my recipe for a really nicely saturated salamander, and that would be fun.
Mm-hmm.
My Chaos Boys, back in 8th edition, I decided I wanted to play Creations of Bile. And so I paid sculptors to make like custom human flesh shoulder pads that I printed out 1 billion of, so I could put them on all of my guys. So all of my guys have that like dead person skin on one of their shoulders. Because the idea with Bile is he just like, yeah, I want this guy and that guy and this guy and that guy from all these different traitor legions. And then, they all just serve under him. So I was like, oh, on top of painting a giant army, what if I painted them all different? That's...
What if I did Death Watch, but even harder? That's at least painting one shoulder pad differently on each guy.
Yeah, no, I'm like, well, okay, so these guys will be Khorne Berserk. Well, okay, so this squad's always going to take the mark of Slaanesh because that's the best one for this type of squad. So I'm going to paint them to all be like different traitor chapters that worship Slaanesh. Like, not just Emperor's Children, though. I'll get some other things in there for variety. Like, well, these guys... Okay, well, these guys are clearly like mostly Night Lords, so I'm gonna have like most of them be Night Lords, but maybe like, oh, let's throw in like, what if one of them was like originally a Khorne Berserker, but now he's just fucking... It's stupid. It's so stupid.
It's fun and it's
a great idea.
It's a very easy to get eyes bigger than your paint palette in this hobby sometimes, which we're all guilty of. I have a lot of unpainted orcs in my closet. And they will probably remain that way for a very long time. But yeah, it's just it's a different beast. And I think it would behoove us to cover that at some point.
Totally. All right, Cannon. Last 2 things, then we're going to get out of here. You ready?
All right. Yes, hit me.
Recommendations. Who should avoid this model, and who do you recommend this model to?
I recommend this model to anybody that likes superheroes, because I think these are very fun. I did this with my mother a while ago. She loves Thor Ragnarok. Loves that movie. So I got her the Loki and Hela box, the Thor and Valkyrie box, and the Hulk box, all the main characters of Thor Ragnarok, and we painted them together. And she'd never painted anything before, but we painted them to a standard she was happy with, and they sit on her shelf in her office. She's never going to play a game of Marvel Crisis Protocol, but she likes that movie. She likes those characters. So, and they're awesome for that. The quality is high enough. They don't take up a shit ton of space. And they're a fun one-off project. So I would recommend these almost more than a lot of wargaming stuff to someone who paints casually for like D&D, or is more like very in it from like, if you're like an art school person and you're like, I want to try painting a miniatures, like an art project. And you like, I don't know, Wolverine, like these guys make a Wolverine mini, go pick up Wolverine. Rocket, he's a very popular character now. He's a little small and fiddly, So that is probably who I wouldn't recommend this to, is if you've got like, if handling small objects, like really small objects that you're trying to paint is difficult for you, probably don't go with Rocket. He is very tiny. And I would say if you are a plastic glue person only, don't do it either, because that will just make your life miserable. He is a super glue assembly model through and through. You just need it. I recommend super glue gel. I think super glue thin would give you similar issues to plastic glue on this guy.
It did.
I believe it. I believe you glued yourself together more than you glued Rocket together.
Yeah, that is what happened, because I was thinking that, oh, this guy's such a little fella, and the flow on, like, the spout on my thick my thick super glue was too aggressive. So I was just like, that's not going to work. I'm going to try the thin, and then just everything that could go wrong did go wrong. Everything that could go wrong did go wrong when I was assembling him,
and that's unfortunate. Even though it happens sometimes,
Yep. So I guess I'll put out there my points. I agree with everything you said, especially on the who should avoid this model. That was probably pretty clear from the way we talked about it up to this point. It's fiddly and it's a pain in the ass to put together because it's so small. So if you don't like putting together small things, don't buy this kit. It's small. It's the smallest thing I've put together. It was really annoying. No two ways around it. Who do I recommend this to? I think you had some really good points, and I'd actually push it back towards, if you like making diorama, great pickup for a diorama. I still, even as I'm sitting here looking at this guy and I'm still kind of mad at him, I still sort of want to make that diorama because goddamn, if these two don't make a really attractive looking scene. I know what I'm looking at.
They play off each other very well. Very well. I would say you could easily not have to do a lot of sculpting at all to make this look like a really functional diorama of that thing, as you said, of like Groot plunging his hand into the earth and Rocket riding a plant tendril out. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, the bases already do a good job of that because they have this like cracking earth element in both of them anyways. So it works really flawlessly. And I mean, it doesn't matter if you set them in the same room or if you set them in separate rooms. That almost makes the scene even more enchanting. If it's like, oh, they're so well connected, the Groot knows to give his buddy some backup from the other room. I mean, that's a cool story too. There's so much character in these guys. There really is. Groot looks pissed and scary. He's not the cute Groot that you're used to.
He's not baby Groot.
He is not baby Groot. He is more terrifying than adult Groot in the first Guardians movie, frankly. I mean, he's pretty jacked up. He's pretty gnarly.
Yeah, that Groot has like human eyes, right? This Groot does not. This Groot looks like a dryad from Warhammer Fantasy Battle.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a scary looking guy.
Yeah, especially I did the little neon pink in both of his eyes. So I mean, it's got this like, I did like a totally blackout and then just the neon pink. So that picks up pretty hard in there, and it's like it's a little creepy, a little spooky, a little haunted woods.
Yeah, but, which is a cool. That's a cool aesthetic. You could go in that direction too.
Yeah. There's
a lot of cool
stuff about this. I should have liked it more. I think it's probably on me that I didn't like it more because I might have gone about this the wrong way.
You know, that just happens sometimes though.
It does.
And you gotta go, okay, and kind of move on. And if you want to revisit it though, I would encourage you to in the future. I think you should if you want to.
Yeah, again, I might at some point, actually for a fun testing myself to see how far I've come. Again, in the last episode, I showed some how far I've come pictures, but I've just reprinted the exact same models that I have as my old 2022 paintings. And I'm going to be redoing those. So I'll be able to very directly compare. I already showed you the same base model, though I had modified it. I also got a lot better at like sculpting and 3D sculpting and all that since I had done it. But looking at one character versus the updated version of him. Now, I did take him from a medium-sized creature to a large-sized creature, so it was easier to get in there, but pretty dramatically huge improvement, which was really exciting to see.
Yeah.
I like doing that once in a while. And we leave all of them at the DM's house, and I don't know what the hell they did, but fucking everything broke. So I need to make new minis anyways.
Fun.
Yeah.
Well, at least you have
I have a reason.
At least you got a 3D printer, and they're not breaking like $70 GW minis.
Yeah,
can I just go on a tangent about DW minis real quick?
Sure, but then we got to wrap it.
I found out today from a friend of mine that there is a model called the like Iron Strider or something for the Adeptus Mechanicus that comes in boxes of 1. These boxes are $50. Okay. It's like an 80 mil base. How many points do you think that thing is worth?
Oh, 70?
Pretty close. It's 80. How many models do you think are in each unit?
6.
That is their max. Yes.
Cool.
Yep.
I was trying to come up with the worst answers.
And you pretty much hit the nail on the head.
Sick.
I was shocked and appalled by that. Needless to say, Rocket and Groot, infinitely better value than an Iron Strider.
You can always just parent 18 zoanthropes too. Somebody might do that.
Yeah.
Somebody might have already done that.
You can neither confirm nor deny.
Sorry, not zoanthropes. That's a copyrighted word.
Noodly space bugs.
Yeah. Big brain bug with tendrils.
Yes.
And little
grabby
little fellers.
Yep. Whittle guys.
Whittle fellas.
Yeah, I've done the ooh voice a lot today. So I
hope to never hear it again.
That, yes. Hopefully we'll never paint another Whittle guy. We just won't do it. So the ooh
Are we
voice,
painting a Whittle guy in like...
Well, I mean that mostly as a joke. There will be more Whittle guys on the cast. And we have a very special Whittle guy coming up. Not in the immediate future, but in the sometime future. And oh boy, if you thought TJ didn't like Rocket, wait till we get to that episode, because I'm going to be hooting and hollering and loving every minute of it. And just wallowing in TJ's misery.
Yeah, it's ugly.
Oh yeah, it's so ugly, and that's why I love it. Look, hey, I'm this thing's mother. It's a face only a mother could love, and I am its mother. So, yeah, I'm excited for that.
Yeah.
But anyway, on that note, I think that's going to do it.
Yeah, I'm satisfied. More than satisfied. We actually got a lot more out of this than I thought we would. I feel like I didn't say that much. I think most of what I talked about was music, but that's where we're at today, buddy.
Hey, it goes that way sometimes. Do you want me to run through real quick in kind of a separate deal? Hey, thanks for listening to the pod. Always remember to rate, review, and subscribe. Follow us on @SmallTalk Podcast or @SmallTalk Miniatures on Instagram. Do you want me to do that as like a separate clip just here right now?
Blah, 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 blah.